In today's video, you'll follow Emily, a 41-year-old mother, as she embarks on an unexpected getaway with her 21-year-old son after quietly enduring the silence of a loveless marriage. Days spent in the stillness of nature, by the sea, and inside a modest wooden cabin slowly peel away the hardened shell around her heart. There's no drama, no anger, just quiet moments, unasked questions, and the patient affection of a son that slowly helps her remember who she used to be. This is a story of healing, gentle, subtle, yet deeply transformative. When my son snapped a picture of me standing still in the snow-draped forest, he said, "Mom, you look like someone about to start over." I'm Emily, 41, a mother, a woman who once disappeared under the weight of living for everyone but herself. But that trip, just the two of us by the quiet ocean in a small cabin surrounded by pine, helped me realize something profound. I don't need anyone's permission to live true to who I am. Have you ever had a moment that cracked you open and let the light in? I'm Emily, a single mom who has just come through the hardest years of my life. Since my divorce, my world has revolved around work, bills, and a house that always had heat and food, but none of the things that make a home feel alive. I couldn't remember the last time I laughed, really laughed. Maybe not since Oliver, my son, left for college. Then, one crisp early autumn afternoon, weighed down from a long day at the office, I came home and found Oliver standing on my porch. Backpack slung over one shoulder, smile soft and a little nostalgic. "Mom," he said as we sat in our old kitchen with mugs of tea steaming in our hands, "I've got a slightly crazy idea. I rented Grandma and Grandpa's old house by the ocean for a few days. Just you and me. You need a break. We need a break." I nearly laughed. A week away? I was still juggling rent and overdue bills. But there was no pressure in Oliver's voice, no demand. Just an invitation from a grown son looking at his mom like someone who needed saving. So I said yes. The house stood nestled between rows of whispering pine trees and faced the endless sea. The wind carried the tang of salt and the hush of waves breaking on the sand. It was simple, a little dusty, and exactly as I remembered. Oliver turned the key in the weathered door and motioned for me to step in first. And just like that, I felt it, like stepping through a doorway into another world. No phones buzzing, no calendars demanding attention. Just air, space, and silence. We've got blankets, a mini gas stove, a few books, and a deck of Uno, Oliver grinned. "And you don't have to lift a finger. I got this." I smiled, surprised and touched. The little boy who once needed lullabies was now unpacking with quick, thoughtful movements. By sunset, we sat on the porch in silence, warm mugs in our hands, our eyes tracing the line where the sea met the sky. Oliver didn't say much. He didn't need to. His quiet company made me feel something I hadn't felt in a long time, safe. The next morning came not with alarms, but with the rhythm of waves and the scent of coffee wafting through a cracked window. I stirred awake slowly, blinking against the soft light, unburdened. Oliver stood in the kitchen, back to me, wearing one of his father's old shirts. "You're up," he said, turning and smiling. "Coffee, just how you like it. Less sugar, more milk," stirred counterclockwise. "Don't ask why I remember that." "More than I expected," I murmured, accepting the warm mug. Later, we cleaned the cabin together. Dusting, opening long-closed curtains, arranging old books back on their shelves. Each simple act felt like I was reviving a part of myself that had been on pause for far too long. The part of me that once found joy in light, in lazy afternoons with a book, in slow, wandering conversations. That afternoon, we walked the shoreline. The sea whispered against the sand with each wave. The breeze was crisp, the sky washed in soft blue. Oliver talked about college, the city, his friends, and moments of feeling alone, even when surrounded by people. I listened more than I spoke. And I watched him, not just heard him, but saw him. The young man he'd become. The same boy who used to dream of space and dinosaurs, now grounding me through the fog of my own uncertainties. "I used to be mad at you for being so quiet," he said, pausing as we walked. "But now I get it. Silence is how you protect yourself when you're too tired to explain." He looked at me then, steady and searching. "You were really lonely, weren't you?" That gentle question caught me off guard. I nodded. "Yes, but not because I was alone. Because I lost myself, slowly, and didn't even notice." He didn't answer. He just reached out and took my hand, not as a boy seeking safety, but as someone offering it. That night, we played Uno under the warm yellow light. I kept losing, and Oliver laughed, really laughed. He teased, "Mom, you're too easy to read." I let you win. I pouted, though inside, I felt light. Afterward, I stood at the window, staring at the night sea. It shimmered in the moonlight. And I, a woman no longer young, suddenly realized I could still start over. I could still be someone. Not a role, not a function. Just me. The next morning, the sky turned gray and heavy with clouds. I woke to the gentle percussion of rain on the cabin roof. Oliver was already on the porch, pen in hand, scribbling into a worn leather journal. I brought him coffee. He smiled. "I'm just writing stuff down. Stuff I'm scared to forget." "I used to do that," I replied quietly. "In college. Before I became someone's wife. Before I became a mother." Then I stopped. Somewhere along the way, my thoughts stopped feeling important. Oliver hesitated, then asked, "Mom, when you were my age, who did you want to be?" I blinked. No one had asked me that in decades. I looked out toward the sea, where silver-tipped waves crashed in steady rhythm. "A writer," I said. "I wanted to study literature, maybe go abroad." I used to write stories under my desk lamp. One even got published in a teen magazine. "What happened?" "I met your dad." I smiled sadly. Then life sped up. "I don't regret having you, sweetheart. But I do regret giving up too soon." Oliver didn't say a word. He didn't need to. His presence was enough, his silent encouragement giving me room to be honest. I could feel it. This trip was doing something profound. It wasn't about the sea, the books, the coffee. It was about space to feel, to be. He reached into his bag and pulled out an old recorder, his dad's, dusty and forgotten. "Tell me one of your stories. The ones you used to write." I laughed. "Seriously?" "Seriously," he said. "I want to know the woman behind Mom." So I began. I told him about the girl who dreamed of neon cities and midnight writing sessions, who sent out her stories to contests and once cried when she saw her name in print. He listened like a little boy at bedtime. But he wasn't a boy. He was a young man now, seeing me not just as the woman who raised him, but as a whole, complex person with dreams that never quite died. That night, I opened a new notebook. Not to relive the past, but to return to myself. I began to write not letters to anyone else, just notes for me, to remember that the person I used to be wasn't gone. She was just buried under years of being everything to everyone. The rain outside softened to a whisper, and for the first time in years, I felt that I was no longer just a silhouette moving through someone else's life. I am Emily, and I'm learning to write my story again. Like and subscribe if this journey has moved you, because the next part of Emily's story is the moment that changes everything. It all begins with one question, asked under a moonless sky, that will challenge everything she thought she knew. That question came late one night. The cabin was quiet, the sea whispering outside like it was carrying secrets on the wind. I sat curled up in an armchair, hands wrapped around a lukewarm cup of tea, staring out the window. Oliver was cleaning up in the kitchen, humming softly to himself. Something about that moment, the ordinary quiet of it, stirred something bold in me. Without turning around, I asked Oliver, "If you were me, what would you do? If your partner had turned so far away for so long that you forgot who you used to be?" I heard the water stop. A chair pulled out slowly. Then his quiet voice, soft but certain. "If I were you, I wouldn't go back to a place where I'm no longer seen. I'd go where I can be myself again." I turned to look at him. His eyes met mine, calm and sure, like he'd been waiting for me to ask. "I used to be so scared," I whispered, "of what your father would say, of what people would think, of losing the only life I knew." "I know," he said simply, "but I see you now, Mom, and you're not lost. You're waking up." My throat tightened, but I nodded. "Do you think I should go back to your dad?" Oliver didn't rush to answer. He looked down for a moment, then met my gaze. "I think you should go back to yourself first. If you don't know who that is, then going back to anyone else won't mean anything." I reached out and took his hand, warm, steady, grounding. We didn't speak again that night, but the silence between us was full of understanding. Later, after he'd gone to bed, I stepped onto the porch with a blanket wrapped around my shoulders. The wind was cold, the sea dark and endless. I brought with me a notebook I hadn't opened in years and began writing, not fiction, not a story, but a letter I'd never send. "Dear Thomas, I'm not sure if these words are for you or for me. Maybe I'll burn them. Maybe I'll hide them in the back of a drawer. But I need to say them. 10 years ago, I stood beside you with hope. I dreamed of a life where we'd grow together, laugh in our kitchen, hold hands on bad days. And for a while, we did. But then we stopped. Not all at once. Slowly, you stopped seeing me. I stopped speaking. And somewhere in that quiet, I disappeared. I used to think staying made me strong, that keeping our family together was worth the silence. But what I didn't realize is that I was teaching myself how to vanish. I miss who I was before. I miss the girl who wanted to write books, open a flower shop, travel to cities I couldn't pronounce. She didn't die. She just went quiet. But I'm calling her back now. Whatever happens next, I won't disappear again. I'm not writing to blame. I'm writing to say, I'm finally choosing me. Emily." There were no tears. Just stillness. Peaceful, terrifying stillness. I closed the notebook and stood in the cold night, listening to the sea echo that decision like it approved. The next morning, sunlight spilled into the room like honey. Oliver was already awake, packing with quiet efficiency. The last day. The cabin felt different now. Still humble, still small, but transformed. Not because it changed, but because I had. I touched the photo Oliver had taken of me, the one where I stood in the snow, my hair catching the light. He had sent it to me with a message, "You look like someone rewriting her story." I believed him now. We left mid-morning. The car hummed softly as it rolled down the forest road. In the rearview mirror, the wooden house grew smaller, and something ached inside me, not grief, not loss, but something like reverence. That place had been the setting for my quiet awakening. Cell signal returned an hour into the drive. My phone buzzed, a message from Thomas. "I'm back. Are you okay?" I didn't reply. Not out of spite. Just. I didn't owe an immediate answer. For once, I wanted my voice to belong to me first. Oliver kept his eyes on the road. I looked at him, felt the warmth in his profile, the way the light touched his jaw. I said, almost to myself, this time, I'll live as me. No more waiting to be seen. He didn't answer, but his smile said everything. When we arrived home, the house looked exactly as we had left it. Crooked painting, flickering lamp, little potted plant shivering on the porch. But I wasn't the same. I walked through the house slowly, touching the things I had once passed without seeing. The kitchen counter, the chipped mug on the shelf, the sun-dappled window that had once lit my forgotten dreams. I opened my notebook and wrote, not for Thomas, not for Oliver, just for me. I'm still here. I'm still whole. And I can still love, starting with myself. That night, the wind outside was sharp, but I slept deeply. Something inside had settled, like dust falling after a storm. In the following weeks, small changes unfolded like petals after frost. I began writing again. Not every day, not grand novels, just memories, thoughts, reflections. I pulled out old stories, ones I hadn't read in years, and let myself remember the girl who created them. One Sunday morning, I walked to the corner bookstore and signed up for a local writing workshop. My hands trembled when I walked in, but when I sat down, I felt the old rhythm stir, like something dormant waking up. At home, I painted one wall in the kitchen a bold ochre color. It didn't match anything else, but it made me smile. I threw out old clothes that never felt like mine and bought a soft navy dress with sleeves that fluttered in the breeze. I wore it to the grocery store and caught myself twirling once in the cereal aisle. The first time Thomas visited to talk, I served tea but didn't rush to make him comfortable. He asked how I'd been, his eyes searching. "I've been learning how to live again," I said simply. He nodded. "I can see that." There was no anger, just quiet recognition of time lost and the soft grace of moving forward separately. One evening, Oliver and I sat on the porch again, this time at home. He'd come over for dinner and stayed late, telling me about a girl he liked and the things that made him nervous about finishing college. "You seem different," he said, nudging my foot with his. "I feel different," I answered. He paused, then added, "I think you're finally becoming who you were meant to be." I looked up at the sky, dark, wide, and infinite, and whispered, "I think so, too." And I wasn't waiting for someone else to validate it anymore. On my 42nd birthday, I stood in front of a mirror, wearing that navy dress, hair pinned up messily, lipstick a shade darker than usual. Oliver had made dinner. Friends had called. A few neighbors stopped by with cake. But before anyone arrived, I stood alone in that mirror, held my own gaze, and said aloud, "You didn't disappear. You just paused. And now you're back." I had always feared middle age would mean fading. But instead, I had bloomed, inward first, then slowly outward. Like something broken, not replaced, but reforged. That trip wasn't just a winter escape. It was a rebirth. And now I carry its lessons in my bones. That silence doesn't always mean emptiness. That even after years of drifting, it's possible to return to yourself. That being seen starts with looking inward. And that the most powerful kind of love isn't the one you wait for. It's the one you finally give yourself. The snowy forest, the sea air, the games of Uno, and the way my son quietly held space for my rediscovery, they weren't just moments. They were milestones. I still have bills to pay, laundry to fold, forms to fill. But I also have a desk by the window, a new stack of journals, and a shelf for books I plan to write. And every so often, I take out that photo Oliver took. The one of me standing alone, looking toward the sea. I don't see someone broken. I see someone just beginning. I'm Emily, 42 now. A mother, a writer, and a woman finally living her own story.